One of the worst pieces of marriage advice I hear all the time. You know what it is? You can be right or you can be happy. I think that's a load of crap. In fact, I think it's one of the worst pieces of marriage advice or any relationship advice for that matter. I had a friend ask me last night, it was casually around a campfire and it was in fun, but he asked me, he said, "So Brian, what do you tell your wife when she's wrong?" And I very quickly and very simply, without thinking, said, "I tell her she's wrong." And I do. When my wife is wrong, I tell her she's wrong. But you know what? There's a little more to it than that. Because when I'm wrong, one of the things about me is that if I'm wrong, I'm willing to admit it. Maybe not in the moment, but I come back and I'll eventually look at it and I will admit it if I am wrong. Stepping outside the situation, looking at it objectively. Did I cause the trouble? Did I say the thing? Whatever the case. Now, that gives me, I think, a little more of a right because I'm not just imposing myself on my wife, but I'm actually living what I'm preaching here. And it was funny because, he said, "Well, what do you tell your wife when she's wrong?" As if we would tell anybody something else when they're wrong, other than the fact they're wrong. I certainly wouldn't expect someone to do that to me, not anyone who cares about me, because here's the problem, here's the deal. In any kind of relationship, imagine being in a relationship for 20 or 30 years, and whenever something goes wrong, whenever you argue, just imagine being that person that says, "Okay, honey, I'm sorry. You're right." But they actually weren't right. They were actually wrong. People say, "Well, it keeps the peace." No, what it actually does is it destroys families. It destroys relationships. What it really does is it breeds resentment. Because over all these years and over all this time, people are trying to be nice and quiet for the sake of keeping peace, but it's really not peace at all. It's resentment growing and growing. And I'll tell you this right now, I've known a lot of mean people, and I've known a lot of very nice people. And I'll tell you this, even the super nice people have their breaking point, and they're going to go off on you. Good, nice people aren't going to take crap forever, and they shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to. So whenever I hear that advice, you can be right or you can be happy. Apparently that's some old guy's advice, some random old guy that we always hear about that nobody knows who he is. The old advice that, "Hey, how'd you stay married for so long? How have you stayed married for 60 years? And he replies by saying, "Yes, ma'am." 2 words are the key to a happy marriage. Yes, ma'am. I'll tell you what, that's not a happy marriage. And if that marriage does last, it's probably a resentful one. Again, think about being in any relationship with any person, whether it's at work or in a marriage, and every time that person does something sideways or wrong or causes trouble, imagine every time you just go, "You know what, you're right," and you walk away. Well, you don't trust the person. There's definitely a disconnect between you and the person, and there's nothing healthy about it. If you stay in that, it will breed resentment, and trust me, it's going to bubble over one of these days and explode. It's like an air tank building with pressure. Unless you let a little bit of pressure out with that release valve, a little bit at a time, it's going to explode one day, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be ugly. So that's one of the worst pieces of marriage advice that I hear people give all the time. They say, "Well, Brian, I've learned you can be right or you can be happy." That's a load of crap. In fact, I'm really happy when I'm right. I don't know about you, but when I know I'm right, I'm really happy about it. And I hope the other person, sometimes that's me, sometimes it's my wife, sometimes it's somebody else, I hope they'll realize that in admitting that you were wrong, it's now an opportunity to correct yourself and do things better and to become a better person. You see, that's what you really steal from somebody. I can't imagine not being honest with somebody who I actually love and care about, because we become better when people love us enough to be honest with us. I don't take the time to be bluntly honest with some people. You know why? Because they're just not that important to me. Whether it's like I don't know them very well or they're not in my life very often, it's not worth my time because they're just not that important to me. But my wife, she's very important to me. My kids, they're very important to me. And I give them the same right to be raw and honest with me because it's important, because these relationships matter. So, Brian, what do you tell your wife when she's wrong? I tell her she's wrong. And what if she gets upset? She'll get over it. And I'll talk to her and I'll admit my own faults and if I had anything in it. And you know what? We almost always, I don't even know the last time we walked away from something like this where we weren't both happy and better people because of it. So you can try and sweep it under the rug, but that's only going to build resentment and some other issues that you're going to face eventually, and it might just all blow up in your face. So be honest. Don't take crappy marriage advice from people who don't know what they're talking about. Or maybe they've been married for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Doesn't mean they're happily married. I've met a lot of people who've gotten divorced in their 50s after 30 years of marriage. Yeah, tell me that didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know. So, be careful. But I believe very strongly, if you truly care about somebody, you'll be very honest with them. And you'll let them be honest with you in return so you can both become better people. So, that's my marriage advice. Don't take bad marriage advice.